What's up, everybody? Welcome to my UFC Vegas 13 recap slash reaction. As you guys may know on Twitter, pretty simple. We're going to recap everything that we saw tonight at UFC Vegas 13, which was headlined by a light heavyweight bout between Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira over at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. For those that don't know me, my name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com. And yeah, this is my YouTube channel. So let's get right into it, man. This wasn't the best card out there, but like it definitely had a solid main event, a main event that is worthy of a main event. I think the biggest complaints of people were mainly that the fights below the main event might have not held too much sort of meat and sort of filled up that card nicely. But as far as just the main event, which we literally just saw moments ago, that was a solid fight. That was a solid fight between two of the very best light heavyweight contenders today in the UFC. And man, what a performance. We had a Glover Teixeira defeating the young gun, the young buck, Thiago Santos, I believe in the third round via rear naked choke. And, it was a tough battle. It was a tough battle for Glover Teixeira. He had to fight through a lot of adversity to get to that submission win. He got rocked a couple of times, especially in the first round and towards the end in that third round as well. The second round was fairly a very dominant round for him where he didn't have much trouble, but he had to fight back from some tough situations where he got dropped and clearly his balance and equilibrium were affected. And he had to dig deep and find a way to pick up a win and get a takedown. So right off the bat, talk about Glover Teixeira's greatness. I mean, the guy is truly one of the best light heavyweight fighters to have ever competed in the history of that division. He might not hold a UFC belt, but just the fact that he's managed to stay relevant for as long as he has, fighting through generations, clearly fighting Thiago Santos, you could say a guy that's part of sort of a new generation, although not a very young guy as well. Thiago Santos is also up there in age, but as far as MMA age, he's certainly, you could say maybe in his prime. You could say maybe that he takes part of that class that we see now in that division. And Glover has been around for quite some time. I mean, for those that don't know, he did challenge for the belt years ago when John Jones was just kind of fresh in the game. We're talking about 2014, so 6 years ago. That's a long time. The man is in his 40s and he's still out here kicking ass. So super impressive win by Glover Teixeira. I mean, he is one of these very few guys, and I've talked about it before on my live chats, one of these very few guys that managed to adapt his style as they get older, as they start losing certain physical abilities. They still find a way to stay relevant by adapting and taking certain parts of the game that don't really require that much athleticism and developing those. So clearly we're seeing Glover Teixeira resort back to his ground game. He's always had a good ground game, but nowadays he puts a lot more focus into it because his chin's not what it used to. Maybe his reflexes are not what it used to, but the chin and reflexes don't really matter when it comes down to the ground. So he's made sure to become one of the most skilled fighters in that aspect. And we see it. And we saw it tonight. We saw a guy that has one of the best ground games in the UFC period. I mean, if you really think about the most dominant top controls in the UFC today, obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov, number one. I mean, there's probably a few other names out there, right? But, I mean, you have to include Glover Teixeira, I think, in the top five. His takedowns are excellent. The timing of his takedowns are great. He can take down when he's rocked. Once he gets you to the ground, I think that's where he shines best. He's got great wrestling, as I just said, but it's really what he can do once the fight is on the ground. Good luck getting back on your feet. I mean, once the fight is on the ground, and I've said this on Twitter, the man has an answer to everything. If you shrimp a certain direction, he has an answer to that. If you play close guard, he has an answer to that. If you play open guard, he has an answer to that. If you try to submit him, he has answers to that. It's just ridiculous. And then his transitions from position to position are just seamless. And anyways, I can spend all night here talking about Glover Teixeira's greatness on the ground because it truly is something beautiful to watch. And this puts him at a very interesting spot in the division. He's now on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak. That's pretty damn good. I mean, that's title shot worthy. And, he's taken some solid names, especially in his last two fights. Now, Thiago Santos, right, tonight. And then prior to that, Anthony Smith, who not so long ago challenged for the belt against John Jones. So, right after the fight, he was doing his post fight interview with John Anik. And he called for a title fight. He's like, look, Dana, don't do the Adesanya fight. He's young. He's got time. I don't have too much time to waste, too much time to sit on the sidelines and wait. So put me in there. And I don't know if that's what's going to happen. We know that Jan Blachowicz, the current champion, is being targeted to fight Adesanya at some point, the middleweight champion. But to be honest, I wouldn't mind if they hold off on that fight with Jan Blachowicz. I'm talking about Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya. I wouldn't mind it at all. I think Adesanya still has some solid contenders at 185. Obviously, Robert Whittaker picking up some solid victories as of late. I think that'd be a very interesting rematch. And look, I think Glover Teixeira has put in the work and he's earned it. I mean, that's a fun fight. I'd love to see Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. And frankly, I probably favor Jan because he's got a bit of the ground game and also that Polish power. But I wouldn't rule out Glover Teixeira becoming champion in 2020 at 42 years old. So 41 years old. So it's pretty crazy, man. But I certainly would like to see that fight. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Maybe you guys can throw that on the YouTube live chat. By the way, if you got questions about anything that happened tonight, feel free to throw it on the live chat, and I'll get to it in just a few moments here. But yeah, just super impressive stuff by Glover Teixeira. In my opinion, he deserves a title shot. He's put in the work. He's beaten the top guys in a division. And I think it'd be a great story to see him challenge for the belt, 6 years later after he fought John Jones. So I'm all in. I'm all in for Glover Teixeira getting a title shot. Truly, Glover Teixeira 2.0 is real, and it's clearly a force to be reckoned with at 205 pounds. I remember after the Anthony Smith fight, I talked to his longtime trainer, John Hackleman, and he's like, yup, Glover's back. Glover's back. I mean, he we got a very dangerous fighter in our hands. And I did ask him, would you like to see him fight for the belt? At that time, John Jones was champion. And he's like, no. But I think I would understand his reservation to put, 41-year-old against arguably the greatest of all time, John Jones. But nowadays, with John basically kind of up at heavyweight, we don't even know. I think a fight with Jan Blachowicz would make complete sense. And honestly, like I said in just a few minutes ago, I wouldn't rule out Glover winning that fight. I think he's a live dog in there, and clearly, he's got good survival instincts, but still a decent chin from what we saw against Thiago Santos, and the ground game will present an issue to absolutely anybody, including the champion. So, again, I'm all in for that Glover Teixeira title fight. All in. Let's take some questions as we go. Dars Von Nang, Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos, or Ronnie Barcelo versus Khalid Taha, which for fight of the night? Oh my God, both amazing fights, both deserving bonuses. For sure, both deserving bonuses. I'm going to go with the Glover Teixeira one because it was a bit more dramatic. I mean, there was some spots there where Glover Teixeira looked like he was gonna be finished. I mean, that first round, he was on ice skates. He was just flopping all around the canvas, and then he was able to get a hold of Thiago Santos, and once he was able to get a hold of something, he was good. But it looked dicey for him. And then in that third round, he got dropped. He was actually on his back. And I think if one solid shot of ground and pound from that follow-up would have landed flush, I think that would have been it. But you see him, even on the ground, he's bobbing and weaving and avoiding damage. The guy's just a brilliant fighter. I mean, Glover Teixeira truly is one of the best fighters we've seen at 205 pounds. So I would actually pick that as fight of the night, although the Barcelos versus Taha fight was amazing. It was a very good fight. I think, I enjoyed that one as well. But I think this one was this was a lot more high level. I mean, we're talking about Barcelos and Taha, two guys that are unranked, although very skilled. They're still unranked. And we're talking about here the top 5, the top 3 of the light heavyweight division. So that always raises the stakes, right? So I'm going to go with fight of the night with Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos. But I wouldn't be surprised if here in a few minutes, as the press conference rolls out, if they actually give a performance of the night bonuses to Teixeira and then give fight of the night honors to Barcelos and Tajas. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, the guy is just brilliant. Glover Teixeira. I mean, I'm just still in shock of what he did tonight. Thiago Santos is a beast, man. Is a beast. Not many fighters are able to take the punches that he took tonight and still be able to function. You know what I'm saying? Especially at that high level. I mean, it's ridiculous. He had in the first round at some point, Teixeira had like a slam into mount. I mean, that was just brilliant stuff. Let's see. Again, Dars Von Nang says MMA fighters in general are getting so much better, so much faster. It seems nowadays UFC roster is stacked. So many good unranked fighters in recent fight cards. So excited for the future. I would partially agree with that. Yes and no. I would agree that obviously because of the innovation of technique and just the fact that we know a lot more about MMA and just technique and best practices now than we did a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Obviously, fighters coming in are going to be able to evolve faster because there's just more knowledge, technology's better, all that. But as far as the UFC roster being stacked, I think some divisions are fairly, I wouldn't say weak, but in previous years they've been stronger. I think what you're getting at with fighters being so high level and being unranked, I think what you're getting at is at bantamweight, and I think we can talk about that right now. I think a big storyline that we've seen, and I'm a big believer in the bantamweight division and how that is currently the best division in the UFC today. I've been saying it for already a few months now, and clearly this fight just once again proves it. I mean, you had Taha and Barcelos fighting, two unranked guys that could easily compete with the champion. I'm not saying beat him. Obviously I would pick Peter Yan every day to beat Barcelos, but it wouldn't be a wash. You know what I'm saying? Usually in any other division, any unranked fighter taking on the champion, that's a wash. Even in a lot of divisions, a top 15 guy that's 15, 14, taking on the champion, that's a wash. But not a bantamweight, man. At bantamweight, you got so many skilled guys. And I think that comment that you mentioned, Dars, is specific to that weight class. Because I could point, and I'm not going to name names, but I could point to certain divisions in the UFC where maybe it's not as deep in talent. And there's... there's just sometimes there's generations that come in and out that are more talented than others. But yeah, there's definitely some divisions that are not as competitive as we've seen in the past. But certainly, bantamweight right now is just beautiful. Bantamweight right now is just an amazing weight class. And also, one of the beautiful things about bantamweight, just one last thing on that, is the fact that all the top guys are constantly fighting each other. So you get world-class fights all the time. Unlike 155 or 170, where you got these guys that are making big money and that are more interested in, making that money and getting matchups that produce a lot of money, which I'm not faulting for them. At the end of the day, this is prize fighting, but all that creates more politics and it stalls out the division and it creates a logjam. At 135, there's not really a lot of big money fights per se. I mean, obviously there's some big personalities there, but there isn't a Masvidal, there isn't a Conor McGregor, sort of these world famous athletes, right? So that just allows the division to flow, and that's amazing. Pepe Martinez, Teixeira, legítimo contendiente. Yes, and I tweeted this in Spanish. I said Glover Teixeira es tu papá, which I meant to say, Glover Teixeira is your dad. You say that a lot in Spanish, especially in Colombia, but when someone's killing it. But because of a tilde, which is an accent that goes on papá on the last word, it translated to the Pope. Believe it or not, a little accent, a little squiggly line on top, as you guys might call it, little dash, changes the meaning. So I wonder if my fellow American or just English-speaking followers saw that and he's like, wait, Glover Teixeira is your Pope? I don't know if they got it, but yes, that's not what I meant to say. Glover Teixeira is your dad indeed. Ernesto Diaz, Giga Chikadze, yeah. This is a guy that's currently unbeaten in the UFC, right? Giga Chikadze. Sorry, I confused him with another UFC fighter at 155. But yeah, Giga's just killing it. I mean, unbeaten in the UFC, hasn't lost since 2018, but he's been very busy, so he's got a lot of fights logged in. Had a beautiful finish where he attacked the body with a kick, a body kick. Jamie Simmons kind of shelled up a little bit. I mean, it wasn't like he was in pain and folded like we've seen some other fighters, but you definitely saw his engine, go down to like 30% and just kind of get stunned a little bit. Like you're playing Call of Duty Warzone and they shoot you, they throw a stun grenade at you and you can still kind of move, but you're in slow motion. That's how Simmons was. And then once he was sort of stunned and shelled up, Giga just attacks the head with a beautiful head kick and knocks out Simmons. Just a beautiful finish in the first round. Again, that is a phenomenal talent, and I said this on Twitter. Giga has so many fun matchups for him. I mean, Edson Barbosa, Shane Burgos. There's so many guys. Jeremy Stevens. He called out Jeremy Stevens and asked for a co-main event bout following his first round win. And I think that makes perfect sense. I think initially I was thinking of like a Burgos and Edson Barbosa. Obviously, those guys are higher up in the rankings, a little bit of more in contender status. But I think, look, let's not rush Giga. You guys know me. You guys know how I usually handle my matchmaking ideas. I always like to err on the side of cautions with very promising fighters, right? You can never hurt a fighter with giving him maybe easy fights or fights that may not be too competitive for the level that they're at. You can never hurt a fighter that way. You can always hurt a fighter, though, by giving them a little bit more than they can chew. So, in my opinion, give him the Jeremy Stevens fight. If he gets a finish or he proves, again, he's still developing and just reaching certain levels in a very quick pace, then you can do a big jump and see how he does, how he fares against higher opposition at 145 pounds. But for now, I think Stevens, again, a very known commodity. You know what you're getting with that guy. You know if you beat him, you're a very good fighter. No shitty fighter gets past Jeremy Stevens. Obviously, Jeremy Stevens is a veteran, super experienced, very good striking, brings a lot of power. Yes, he has some holes. We've seen that throughout his career, but holes that only very, very good fighters are able to exploit. So I think that'd be an excellent fight for Giga. I think that'd be a fantastic matchup, and very smart of him for calling for that fight. I think it's a very wise matchup for him next. But yeah, he's a phenomenal fighter. I really like his striking, and he's done a good job at adapting it to mixed martial arts, because obviously we know he's got that extensive kickboxing background. I think he's got almost like 50 fights in kickboxing. So yeah, one of the very few guys that are able to transition from that world and kill it. Okay, I didn't see this question. Anyways, Chances Teixeira's on roids. Dude, there's USADA. That man is not on roids. I mean, I don't know, right? But I wouldn't throw that accusation around. Only answering that because I accidentally featured it on the thing. Let's see here. Dars Von Nang again. Which crew is the next group to take over the UFC? Dagestani crew, Georgian crew, CKB crew, African/Nigerian crew, China crew. So many top level fighters from all around the world. Yeah, I think we're gonna see a little bit of everything. Obviously, the Dagestanis have a very strong influence. I think we've been seeing it for some time now. They're a little bit more established. I feel like the Georgian crew, we're gonna see a lot of that. They're certainly letting us know about their presence in the UFC, but I feel like they're just sort of getting a foot in the door. But in the future, when we see this Georgian name sort of have bigger bouts and better performances and more wins, I think we're going to feel that presence a bit more. But it's certainly there. I mean, there are a lot of Georgian fighters out there that are looking very, very good. In African Nigerian, I mean, we got two champions right now, Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya, and potentially a champion coming up with Francis Ngannou, obviously a top contender at heavyweight. So I think they're already there. I don't think they belong in this question. I think they're already established. And yeah, China also has some great talent coming up as well. Very, very, very good international MMA we're seeing lately. Very, very good. Um, Barcelos took the night. Amazing. Yep. But Barcelos looked fantastic. Evelyn G. Thoughts on Yan versus Wei Li? That'd be a fun fight. Before we talk about that one, first of all, let's talk about Claudia Gadelha. Let's talk about the fight, and then we'll talk about this potential fight between Yan and Wei Li. So we saw Yan in the opening of the main card defeat Claudia Gadelha, a former title challenger, at 150 pounds via unanimous decision, 29-28 across all boards on the judges' scorecards. And to be honest, I think that was the right decision, but I don't think, and I know this might be a controversial opinion, and I know might get a thumbs down. I know there's a lot of Claudia Gadelha haters out there, but I don't think it would have been crazy if Gadelha would have won that fight, 29-28. I think that final round was very close. I mean, yeah, Yan had some good strikes, but there were very, very few, and the majority of the final round was Gadelha controlling Yan against the cage, which again is not a takedown. I would give a little bit more points if the fighter's actually on top as opposed to just pressing someone against the cage. But it's still someone being in control of the fight and putting a fighter in a position that they don't want to be in, right? Their opponent. So I gave the first round to Claudia Gadelha. I gave the second round clearly to Yan. And then the third round, I thought it was a bit of a toss-up. I think, again, ultimately the right person won by Yan picking up the victory. But I don't think it would have been crazy if Gadelha would have pulled off a very close decision. But anyways, I think Wei Li still levels above. I mean, Wei Li's so good everywhere, especially in her striking. She's a lot busier than Yan. I would say Yan appears to have more size. And, I wonder how that would carry over. Certainly in the grappling, it would be very helpful. But Yan likes to use her striking. Does a lot of counter punching as well. So I'd still favor Wei Li. I think Wei Li is very good. I think going into that Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight that we saw in February, right? At the end of February or early March, I forgot. I was actually in Vegas. I was actually covering that event. And for those that were following me then, you guys know how I felt about Wei Li. Not that I didn't think she was good, but I just had a lot of questions, a lot of opposition that she fought in the UFC to get to a title shot. Just wasn't all that great. And then beating Andrade the way she did, it was nice. But again, I'm not saying it was a fluke, but we've seen fighters pick up belts, lose them, and then never regain any type of contender status. So again, I wasn't saying that was going to be the case, but I was just skeptical to how good Wei Li was. And then in that performance against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I was just blown away. So I truly think she's the best at 150 pounds. I think there's a few fighters that could give her some trouble and potentially put up a close fight. I think Rose Namajunas is one of them. Trying to think who else. I mean, Jan's certainly a solid contender, but I think Wei Li gets a good win over her. And I'm trying to think of other names that could potentially. I think right now the only person. I mean, Tatiana Suarez. I think that'd be actually a very interesting challenge. But obviously she's out via injury indefinitely. We don't know when she's gonna come back. So again, very very few women in that division are able to actually put up a solid challenge to Wei Li, in my opinion. All right, let's see here. Oh. I didn't want to get into this, but since you're asking details, how about that year? Not sure if I ever seen something like that before. Yeah, so what fight was this? This was in the Max Griffin versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Max Griffin just literally slices Ramiz's ear. I believe it was with a right hand, just nasty. One of the nastiest ear slices I've ever seen. I mean, it's definitely up there. I've seen some close ones. I don't know if you guys remember Leslie Smith years ago when she was fighting in the UFC. I forgot who she was fighting, but she had a similar thing where she was punched and she had a really big cauliflower and it just exploded. There was actually a very good photo that Esther Lynn, my former coworker, took where you see like the explosion. You just see blood in the air upon impact. And that was pretty bad, but not as bad as this, because this was more hanging. Like, you could literally see at one point, before the blood came in, I saw like some yellow stuff. That was like the fat that's in here. Like, that's how deep it was. It was like surgical. It was disgusting. Also, I missed the opening bout between Gustavo Lopez and Anthony Burchak. So literally, as soon as I started tuning in, that's the first thing I saw. And it was just not an easy way to get set up into a fight card. I was like, that was disgusting. But yeah, that was pretty gross. So far, I think the grossest I've ever seen. Also, if you guys don't remember, Kimbo Slice, when he fought who did he fought? This big guy, something Thompson, right? This British guy, just the ear was hanging again. The cauliflower exploded. That was pretty nasty as well. But this was just gross. This was nasty. Yeah, somebody, Jeffrey Smith, commenting a little bit about the Leslie Smith situation, kind of referring back. Pepe Martinez saying here in Spanish, que hagan las dos peleas en el mismo evento, Jan versus Teixeira y Adesanya versus Whitaker. Si los dos campeones retienen el título, será más llamativa esa super pelea. So basically saying, do Jan versus Teixeira, do Adesanya versus Whitaker, and then have the winners fight each other in a much bigger fight. I don't know if that's the move. I think whoever wins, depending on the type of matchup, then it could be worth having a champion versus champion super fight. But at this point, like Adesanya, yes, he's becoming a big name. Yes, he's becoming a very dominant champion at 185 pounds. But I believe he's only 3 title fights in, right? Like, he defended his belt against, or unified it against Whitaker. Beat Joel Romero. And then now just beat Paulo Costa. So I believe that's only 2, right? Let me. Am I missing one? I don't know. Let me pull it up. I believe, yeah, he only has 2 title defenses. I might be missing one. Yeah, he only has 2 title defenses. Like, and we're already talking about champion versus champion super fight. Come on, I'm not about it. I feel like champion versus champion super fights make sense once a champion no longer has challenges in their respective weight class, or at least any big challenges. And I feel like there's still some guys at 185 pounds that could be interesting matchups for Adesanya. And then if we move up to 205, Jan Blachowicz literally just won his belt like a month ago. So, and now we're already talking about a champion versus champion super fight. I don't like that. I've been very vocal about that in the past. So obviously this is nothing new to you guys if you're listening in. But yeah, to me, the move is keep them in their own weight classes, have them pick up victories. If they're still champions, then maybe do a champion versus champion super fight. All right. Let's see what else here we got of questions. Who fares better against Israel Adesanya? Glover with his BJJ or Jan with his power? Says CC 2.0. I honestly, I would favor Jan Blachowicz in a fight against Israel Adesanya, to be quite honest. I would favor Jan. Slightly, but I would favor him. And against Glover, I think I would favor Adesanya just because Glover's a bit slow. He's very technical, but obviously with his age and being in his 40s, he's not that fast. He's not that fast with his hands, and he's actually not that fast with his takedowns. The only reason why he's so successful with his takedowns and basically he shoots and he gets it. He doesn't have to shoot a bunch of times to get a takedown. Is because he times them well. His timing is very, very well. But Adesanya right now, he's prime both physically and skills wise. So you need both good timing and good speed to get a takedown on him. So I don't think Glover Teixeira. Not that I don't think he gets the fight to the ground, but I think he'd have a very, very tough time getting it to the ground. So, and then on the feet, Adesanya is way too fluid and would just be pop, 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 just popping him all day. So yeah, I would say that Jan Blachowicz is a bigger threat to Israel Adesanya the Glover Teixeira. Santos' power is scary. He actually looked decent tonight. Just Glover was the better man. Santos versus Reyes next. I believe Reyes is fighting Jiri Prochazka. That's how you say his name. Let me. Prochazka. Whatever, however you pronounce the Czech guy, however you pronounce his name. So that fight's booked. So you can't count Reyes for that one. But I think there could be other good names for Santos. Again, Santos was submitted. He didn't really take much of a beating, so wouldn't be surprised if he has a quick turnaround here. Let's quickly pull up the UFC light heavyweight division, at least the rankings, and see who he could potentially fight coming off a defeat. So, look, Rakic is looking for a big fight. I think that could make sense. If Anthony Johnson does indeed come back, I know he's back in the USADA pool, but if he does indeed return to the UFC, I'd love to see Anthony Johnson versus Thiago Santos. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Also, Johnny Walker versus Thiago Santos would be a lot of fun. Walker in a little bit of a win streak now, so that fight could make sense. Yeah, I think those two are good options for him. Seeing how Tanner Boser, only 29 years old, and given that the athletic prime of the average heavyweight fighter seems to be around 52, nice joke, there may be hope for him yet. Yeah, for sure. He's still young. He still doesn't have like a ton of experience. I'm not saying he's a rookie, but he's not an Andrei Arlovsky for sure. He's not a guy that's been around for a very, very long time, right? And as you said, heavyweights tend to become and enter their prime later in their later stages, right, when they're much older. So I think he still has a lot of years ahead of him as far as developing. Again, he's only 29 years old, and although he does have a good level of experience, he might not have a lot of experience in the high level. Again, this was I believe his first co-main event bout. So again, Tanner Boser's still a baby in this game. He has a lot to develop, a lot to learn, and I'm sure he'll be back and have some big bouts in the future. And it was a close fight. I actually had it scored for Tanner Boser. It was a very boring fight, to be quite honest. Not much action between both fighters. Andrei Arlovsky, still, you just can't get rid of that guy. He's going to be like 50 and still be killing it. Certainly, he stays at a level where he might not be the very best, but he's still up there. He's still a top 15 guy, and will be for quite some time. I mean, just a very, very good fighter. I believe he's a 4-1 in his last 5 outings too. So sneaky run a little bit. He's 3-1 in his last 4. So yeah, there could be some fun matchups for him in the future. I like Andrei Arlovsky. I really do. Maybe I have a soft spot for him because he's an OG, and I remember watching him since since way back when, since like 2010 and shit. I remember watching him fight. In fact, I was there when he fought Anthony Johnson outside of the UFC. That was at the World Series of Fighting, or a CFA, might have been. That was in South Florida. So, yeah, I covered one of his fights outside of the UFC. But, yeah, Arlovsky's amazing. He's great. Robert Holmes. Hey, Danny, if I DM'd you a Colombian restaurant menu here in Texas, would you tell me if they're legit? Yeah, 100%. At Danny Segura TV. You can find me on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And yeah, shoot me a DM and I'll check it out for sure. All right, let's quickly look at the card before I call it quits here. Again, I'm not going to go a full hour on this. I know I'm 34 minutes in. But again, it wasn't the biggest card in the world. It wasn't really all that stacked. So let's quickly see if there are any other results worth mentioning. We already talked about Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos. And again, if you got questions, now's your time to throw them because I'm going to do a last round and then dip out. So if you got questions about the card, make sure you throw them on the YouTube live chat. So we already talked about the main event, Teixeira versus Santos. Talked about the co-main event a little bit, Andrei Arlovski versus Tanner Boser. Talked about Barcelos versus Taha. Talked about Giga already. We talked about Jan versus Claudia Gadelha. So basically, the main card, we already covered it. The nasty ear. I guess Darren Elkins, he picked up a nice victory. He really needed that win. He was on a 4-fight losing streak, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, in a 4-fight losing streak. So, 5 in a row could have sent them walking out of the UFC. Could have given him his walking papers. So certainly a big win for his career. And he's one of these guys that has like a good name within the hardcores and has an interesting style. So I'm glad he's sticking around because when you're looking at a card and you see him on the prelims, that's sort of a nice little fight to watch out for. He always has an interesting style. He's the damage, man. He's the damage. Also, always seeing that beautiful tattoo across his chest is always a plus, right? Let's see here. All right, see a few other questions, but they're not really respective to this card. Leave those for Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'll be back with my weekly live Q&A. If I change the date, like I have in a couple times in the last month or so, I'll put something out on Twitter. So make sure you're following me so you get updated when the live chat will be. So anyways, I'm going to call it quits here again. I'm not going to go a full hour. It wasn't really a great card, to be quite honest. Fairly uneventful. I think the main event was worth talking about, and I did here. So we can talk about it further maybe on Tuesday if some other stories come from it. But yeah, I think that does it for this card. So anyways, remember, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Danny Segura TV. Give this video a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And that's it. Turn on notifications so you know when I'll be going live. And I will be talking to you guys next week. Later.